Absolutely. It's how I get out of bed every morning.
Those weirdos who sent after me were nothing but paper thugs. It's about time I stung you too, you freak.
Stop, Tanimura. Don't you dare. How dare you call my henchfreaks paper? You're the one that shot them, you damn parasite.
Justice.
You've lost your justice. Can't you just tell me everything you know about corruption? If you do, I'll let you go, I promise. And I'll even throw in a free set of sacred tree armor just for you.
Well, that sounds like justice.
Oh, perfect. Just head around the corner and you'll reach another room. It's my old wine cellar. Nice work you got there, Mr. TDF. Corruption. Corruption is everywhere. And corruption can be like a rabid monkey in your brain, telling you to dine and dash at your local Smile Burger. It's terrible. It's corruptible. With all that in mind, there are 3 individuals in particular, 3 suspects, I want to discuss for today's video. I'll also be bringing up accomplices that you guys might know of. The first of these is Kurahashi Mitsuru, and then Kurahashi Wataru. And last but not least, one suspect in particular that we've lost, but has a key connection to myself, that being Sugiuchi Junji. So now, Mr. TDF, let's get into it.
Kuroiwa. The one who almost put Hamura behind bars, before you two pulled him out of my grasp.
Huh. So what?
I've become a department punchline now. I have you to thank.
A real psycho can come from places you thought were safe. Sometimes that means law enforcement itself. Enter the Mole, aka Kurahashi Mitsuru. His moniker of the Mole says it all. The guy is so invested in his craft that he's content leaving the facade as a top-line detective at Kamuro PD. He's an antagonist that stands out for a reason. It's refreshing to have guys you just want to beat up, and likewise, they want to take you down too. Now, I'd say the Mole is more so on the scale of Raymond Law or Sadamoto Kiyoya, in terms of just being evil dudes. Although, I'd say these guys are more of the evil type that are an actual physical threat, compared to the still vile but are complete losers such as your Iwamis and Jengus. What makes the Mole especially eerie is how completely unsuspecting he is during about the first 2/3 of Judgment's plot. And for me, Mr. TDF personally, I was taken off guard by the Mole because of his actor, Tanimura Shinsuke. You see, when I was growing up, a billion years ago, I first saw him in 2000's Godzilla vs. Megagearus, where he played Kudo Hajime, a goofy scientist guy who makes robots and chibi anime AI avatars. Definitely a different character than being the murderous Kurahashi here in Judgment, huh? There's one really cool thing about these games, it's seeing actors you saw growing up playing different roles.
Damn, Mr. TDF, you sure are old. Now, from my intel, I remember hearing about this situation of the Mole. I certainly remember hearing shockwaves about this intel throughout the criminal underworld, when the whole Mole crisis underwent and took over all of Kamuro. Now, this was tied back into what is known as the 89 crisis, and it certainly went up the ladder in terms of our health field, and all the way down to the depths of hell, the likes of Kura and the Yakuza and the Matsugane family that were involved. Now I gotta say, with this 89 crisis, it certainly sent shockwaves out Kamurocho that I wish I could have been there to stop. But nonetheless, even before this 2018 crisis, in 2016, hearing about the little fires of Little Asia was already hard enough for me. The whole community was at stake. But now knowing that there was a legit serial killer that dates back in his own process, going throughout the alleyways of Kamurocho, sleeping behind every corner, and leaving a trail of blood that was almost untraceable. God damn it. I'm glad this Yagami guy took care of the mole.
Plus, the mole makes you start to question who you can trust. Corruption is murky enough as is, but imagine learning that one of your colleagues was actually a serial killer, dosed in self-revive syringes, and collaborating with another psycho in the health industry. I just hope that any colleagues I have in the future are not the type that take out eyeballs.
Yep. Kura was technically the lackey of a scientist named Shono Yoji, the creator of 89. How ironic. For a scientist trying to stop severe memory loss, he certainly lost his own judgment along the way.
And while Kura was the dirty henchman for Shono, that doesn't mean he was completely loyal. Like a true Decepticon, the mole still played by his own rules. After forging a deal with the Matsugane family captain, Hamura Kyohei, years ago, Kura was able to effectively work in both the underworld and police, and therefore understand how to walk circles around both. While not at all the scheming manipulator like other villains, instead, Kura's version of walking around others is more like a predator knowing where to find his prey in the wild concrete jungles of Tokyo, and he needed to satisfy his bloodlust. According to Hamura, Kura was mentored by a Tojo clan informant in his early years. Exactly what that entails is up to our interpretation, but judging from his pure onslaught against the Matsugane family and the burning hotel, the remains of the 89 test subjects he gouged eyes out of, the murder of suspecting bystanders like Shitani Masamichi, and lastly, the calculated viciousness of his two boss battles, it's clear as Soma's back that this Kura was an absolute destroyer.
Oh, I'll definitely take whatever serum the mole had in that hospital battle. It reminds me of what the villain in Ong Bak took during the final confrontation. You see, I lost all of my sacrifice stones because I went chicken racing in Nagoya. Damn it.
The mole is a textbook definition of an intimidating antagonist that knows how to get the job done. The duel between him and Yagami in the hospital during a thunderstorm is one of the most badass finales in this franchise. And it would turn out that the mole's own anger and his bloodlust would lead to his own demise, as he would be cornered by truth and justice in the form of Yagami, revealing Shono's own scientific horror to the world. And this is all because Shono really wanted to cure Alzheimer's himself due to his own personal experience. And while that may be a good reason to find a cure, the one he made was so wrapped up in his own misguided judgment that he truly believed it was actually going to work. But we saw how that ended up in the plot, and how 89 would end up killing its own creator, Shono. While you can never really take back what a murderer and egotistical scientist combo can do to innocent lives, at the very least we can let their souls rest by defeating the menace with a punch of justice to the face, and throwing a couple more punches for good measure. And for Yagami himself, I'll always remember how it was the ghosts of his own past that literally got him back to his feet in that hospital in the finale, and encouraged him to defeat Kura and Shono. The figures that haunt us can also remind us of what we need to do. I'd say that's good judgment we need.
So that's why. I finally understand.
Well, what do you know it? I have just a case file for this, my Memoirs of Justice, volume 542. Kurahashi Wataru, his real name being Ji Young-mi, his Korean birth name. We're talking about another member of Tokyo PD, but this time one that was actually a secret Jinwon Mafia agent, a survivor, plotting revenge against the Yakuza clans of East and West. If my intel serves me right now, Kurahashi was apparently a brother of sorts to Terada Yukio, aka Kim Daijin. Nonetheless, both men are members of the original Jingwon Mafia stationed in Kamurocho, around Theater Square, who witnessed the massacre carried out by the old bastard that was Sohei Dojima. Now, he also sent out Kazuma and Shimano to destroy this community, trying to survive, although it was Kazuma's old-fashioned noble spirit that led him to spare the young Terada and Kurahashi. I always knew that Kiryu-san was different from the rest, but knowing that his old mentor was Kazama-san just makes sense.
The reveal of Kurahashi being a Jingwon survivor may be one you forget considering how many turns there was in Yakuza 2's plot in 2006, but I'd argue that this reveal helps build up Terada's return in the climax. Sure, Kurahashi may be a character from that game you probably don't think of first when Yakuza 2 comes to mind, but he still illustrates to the audience and the characters alike how far the Jingwon Mafia still existed. Plus, Kurahashi being a quote-unquote elder brother of sorts to Terada makes sense considering one of them joined the police and the other joined the Yakuza. Now keep that dynamic in mind as it plays into a certain duo from Yakuza 4 later in this video.
君らが追っていた組織とは何なんだね。
人言派です。
人言派？何を言ってるんだ。人言派はとっくに壊滅したはずだ。
As someone who grew up accustomed to immigrant communities, pertaining to my own background in Kamurocho and Little Asia, I gotta say, I do have some empathy and sympathy alike for the Jingwon Mafia. After all, they left their homeland or just trying to survive in Japan. Although, the way that they were massacred by the partnership of Dojima, Kazama, and Shimano was definitely a horrific act that sent shockwaves years later in 2006. If my memory serves me right, here on page 72 for my research, I wouldn't be surprised that there are members of the Jingwon trying to survive even to this day in the form of an offshoot branch in Yokohama that became the Gomujiu.
The war in 1980 that the Tojo clan waged on the Jingwon Mafia set the tone for another bloodbath to arise in 2006 when all the survivors took different branches and would soon find themselves back in the eye of violence. In addition to Kurahashi and Terada, there was also the supreme badass known as Ryuji Goda, who was saved by the DILF detective Jiro Killer Kurara at the final moments of the 1980 massacre. Then Kurara would later on marry Goda's mother, Jung Se-hoo, Jung Soo-young, and later on have Karo Sayama with her as his daughter, although Sayama wouldn't know about her past in order to keep her safe. Finally, there was Hojong Park, aka Marai, apologies if I mispronounce these names, who also survived. He was that old shogi guy Kiryu and Sayama find in Sotenbori right before the Jingwon Mafia reveal their full appearance. With all this in mind, it's easier to see why this crime syndicate would want to take revenge on the Yakuza, even if some of the other survivors took other paths. Above all, it was still Kurahashi and Terada that took the most explicitly antagonistic path that put the pieces in play for a new war between the Tojo clan and Omi Alliance. Remember, it was Kurahashi's side of the plan that disrupted the Flores' new surveillance system and the Millennium Tower and caused the death of Kurara right in front of Sayama. He may not have been part of the final battle of Terada, but he was still a player in the conspiracy that caused serious damage and impacted the story. That seemed to be part of Yakuza 2's style after all, a more focused perspective on how betrayal can come from seemingly anywhere, and corruption can be deceptively clever. Kurahashi made the police corrupt. Then guys like Takashima and Sengoku both had their own agendas in the Yakuza that made the Omi Alliance's once strong leadership begin to crumble. Oh, and you can't forget MILF Hunter, Shindo, and evil itself Hayashi, corrupting the plot with their own stank. Kurahashi Wataru may have posed a stint as the Tokyo PD's Division 2 Chief of Foreign Affairs, yet in actuality he was more than ready to cause a whole messy affair for everyone else. If there's one thing you want to remember this guy by, it's that he kidnapped the super detective Dilf, that is Date, and then murdered the Magnum Force Dilf Carrara. Stop attacking detectives, damn it.
Viewers, it all culminates in this moment right here. Because speaking of detectives, corruption almost always takes the lives of good, innocent people caught in the crossfire. That being my own father, as you just saw in that photo, my own adopted father, Taiki Tanimura. Now what happened? Well, he was murdered in cold blood by his own partner on the force, Sugiuchi Junji. Now, why did Sugiuchi do that? Well, you see, Taiki was a proud detective in Kamurocho. That is, until 1985, where he deduced that the killer of 18, Saejima, didn't really kill those 18 men at that Robin bar. No. Turns out it was actually the combined effort of Katsuragi, Isao Katsuragi, whose real oath brother was my own father's partner on the force, Sugiuchi Junji. That's right. Sugiuchi this whole time was a Yakuza in disguise, being part of the Unosewa clan. And wouldn't you know it, Katsuragi was the one who planted those rubber bullets in Saejima's revolvers, meaning that Saejima didn't actually kill anyone, and instead it would be the combined efforts of Katsuragi finishing off his own men, and having Sugiuchi shoot him in the shoulder to make sure that it didn't look like it was Katsuragi putting out the crime. But wouldn't you know it, my father, Taiki Tanimura, found out the truth behind this and was slain in cold blood. But, as my story goes, I would find out that it wouldn't be only my own father who found out about this mishap in this calculation of murder. It was none other than the original Deputy Commissioner of Tokyo PD, Seishiro Murakata, who found that out all the way back in 1985, and would then blackmail Sugiuchi and use him, along with Katsuragi, to hatch a plot decades later in 2010. And so, Sugiuchi murdered my father and continued his own path in law enforcement, his own career. And what did you know it, Sugiuchi actually became a pretty well-regarded detective at Kamurocho PD. So much so that he would even stick it to old friends of mine like Akiyama, tell him to stay out of this case that was rising, involving Seishiro Munakata. And well, I gotta say, despite having resentment and my own peril in learning that Sugiuchi murdered my own father, I gotta say, I could tell that Sugiuchi was a conflicted man this whole time. Even 15 years later, and looking back on our fight, I can tell there was a good man underneath all the heavy weights of scars he was holding within him. And in his final moments, I distinctly remember Sugiuchi telling me in his soliloquy he was hoping to find some peace, and telling me his whole story, this whole corruption, this whole conspiracy he was put into by Seishiro Munakata.
That's right, Tanimura, you parasite, you. Now, I'll dive into the rest of the scheme and context of this event in the underworld. Sugiuchi is what I'd call the highlight boss of Yakuza 4's story in terms of build-up and giving us a revelation we've been hoping to discover in the plot. He's similar in structure and even gameplay-wise to Joji Kazama's boss fight in Yakuza 3. Both are cinematic, take the fight to a unique setting, and even have movesets that will punish you if you fight mindlessly. Additionally, they're both succeeded by fights that lead into the final chapters, then start to really ramp up. And oh yeah, I'll add that the speedboat fight between Tanimura and Sugiuchi is a lot of fun too. It's a nice way to build off the car battles in Yakuza 1 and Yakuza 2. So while Sugiuchi may come across as a stern jackass throughout the 2010 Munakata incident, it makes sense considering he's had to essentially live a fake career as a police detective boss while being fully aware that the deputy commissioner has his skeletons in his closet by the balls. Balls out. Not only that, but you can see that past the malice and violence he gives Tanimura during their climactic confrontation, Sugiuchi in turn was just trying to warn the Justice Man several times throughout the story to stay away from this conspiracy. And alas, in Sugiuchi's final moments, it was clear that he lamented the life he's had, as he was still a Yakuza at heart, and one that did murder Tanimura's adopted father, although Sugiuchi also mentioned how, despite never wanting to be a police officer, it still felt good to him to help civilians and make the streets safer. That part of his final speech says a lot about who Sugiuchi was beneath the facade, and that it was Katsuragi who was the more explicitly aggressive one in their dynamic. Especially if you look back at the 1985 flashback, where it was pretty much Katsuragi who took upon himself to murder his own clan members after Saejima was arrested. To put it short, perhaps Sugiuchi could have been a genuine detective in another lifetime.
I'll stop you right there, Mr. TDF. Sugiuchi was actually conflicted like any of us are. Sure, he may have had the clothes and lifestyle that detective money couldn't just afford, meaning he was clearly involved with a third party this whole time. However, he was still a detective who tried to do the right thing, even if that meant getting blood on his hands. And he was a product of blackmail, ultimately, and stuck in a bigger, wider web of conspiracy than he knew he was going to get himself into. It's not easy, but years later, I can rest easy knowing that Sugiuchi was able to find some peace at his final moments. Letting the truth out is never easy. You can often take it for granted, but you never know what relief it'll bring to you once you let it out. Corruption is everywhere, and it's clear from today that it can come to us at every angle. And well, Mr. TDF, corruption is a force that'll take anyone with it, especially unsuspecting communities just trying to survive in a harsh, concrete jungle. Take me, for instance. I've lost both a birth father and an adopted father due to the seedy underworld and its dealings. The hand of the underworld always takes more with it than it initially wants. And well, the Munakata situation of 2010 took the lives of many, such as Saejima Yasuko, Hisai Satoshi, and Hamazaki Go, including Sugiuchi Junji. It's a terrible thing to see, and unfortunately corruption just doesn't go away so easily. However, you can bet that whenever corruption comes around again, I'll bring my own hand of justice right towards it. Don't fall for a selfish deed. Instead, have a little faith. Tanimura! Oh, Tanimura! What are you doing? What are you doing? Oh, Tanimura! Tanimura, what are you doing? Your work has been beautiful, my friend. Why are you trying to tamper with my fuse box? I said I'd let you go, remember? Oh, I remember all right. The exit is right over there behind that secret door. I'm revealing it right now. Oh, I've got one more piece of intel just for you, Mr. TDF. Tell me. What? What? Do you like Boss coffee? You see my labyrinth, Tanimura. Look, it's full of empty wine and even beer bottles. When do I have time for coffee? I'm walking ahead with pride to the next stage. And it's time for you, Mr. TDF, to sober up. You parasite! Tanimura!